Pan-African unrest is rising, and at the heart of this turmoil is Burkina Faso's rebel leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a 37-year-old soldier, captain who has become the symbol of African struggle, honor, and self-determination. On Wednesday, April 30th, 2025, thousands of Africans from Burkina Faso to Ghana, Liberia, to beyond poured into the streets. Their voices united under the angry cry of "Hands off the AES and long live Captain Traoré." These protests, caused by a thwarted coup attempt supposedly planned from Ivory Coast and offensive comments by U.S. Africa leader General Michael Langley, have not only gathered Burkinino Bay but sparked a Pan-Africanist fervor that has left African leaders afraid, embarrassed, and exposed. For the first time in modern history, people of one African countries are taking to the streets to defend the leader of another, while their own leaders languish in the shades of public scorn. This is no everyday moment. It's a change of consciousness, and there is its torchbearer in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso's capital, the Plastella Revolution. Waste turned into a sea of resistance as thousands gathered in support of Captain Traoré and his military junta. The protests were a direct response to a big plan uncovered on April 21, 2025, which Burkina Faso's force police claimed was orchestrated from nearby Ivory Coast to overthrow Traoré and sow total chaos, adding fuel to the fire. General Michael Langley's April 3rd statement before the U.S. Senate, where he accused Traoré of misusing Burkina Faso's gold stocks for personal gain, was viewed as a clear imperialism attack. Protesters in Ouagadougou waved Burkina Faso and Russian flags, a nod to Traoré's shift toward non-Western ties, and brandished signs criticizing Langley. Some scrawling slave across his picture in bold red ink, "Long live Captain Traoré," they shouted, their voices echoing. So resolute a rejection of foreign meddling. But what makes this moment important is its regional and world reach. In Monrovia, Liberian people defied their government to stage a friendly African march for freedom under the sign of unity. With Traoré on Wednesday, a group of Liberian protesters marched to the Ivorian embassy, their signs blazing. With anti-imperialist chants, they accused Ivory Coast and the United States of conspiring to upset Burkina Faso, is requesting that both countries desist from meddling in the internal government of Burkina Faso. Their message was unequivocal. The people of Burkina Faso deserve peace. President Traoré is delivering real growth and must be allowed to continue serving his people. The protesters tried to deliver letters to other embassies' goals, but were stopped by Liberia's national cops, who cited a lack of protest permits. In a frightening increase, Liberian officials arrested some protesters and made threats, showing the depth of discomfort. Traoré's impact is spreading among African leaders. In Accra, Ghana, the socialist The movement of Ghana led a support rally, naming Traoré a sign of African honor and fight. Ghanaians, too, joined the chorus of "Hands off the AES," a reference to the Union of Sahel States. AES, the Revolutionary Confederation of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, that has become a bulwark against neo-colonialism. Remarkably, people from across Africa, including those from places as far afield as South Africa and Nigeria, either went to Ouagadougou or planned rival protests in their own letters. Sekou and Somariam Dukali, a Liberian protester who traveled to Burkina Faso, caught the feeling perfectly. "I came to Ouagadougou today to participate in this protest in backing of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, because he embodies hope for Africa, hope for black people, hope for all freedom." Fighters around the world, even beyond Africa, diaspora groups and anti-imperialist activists in Europe and the Americas took to the streets, spreading Traoré's word of sovereignty. To understand why Captain Ibrahim Traoré has sparked such unprecedented help, we must first study the man and his goals since taking power. In a September 2022 coup, the second that year, Traoré has positioned himself as a modern-day Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's rebel hero, often dubbed Africa's Chavara. Was just 34 when he took power. Traoré offered to improve security, dignity and wealth to a nation ravaged by Islamist insurgencies and neo-imperial plunder. Unlike many African leaders who pay lip service to growth while coming up to Western powers, Traoré has walked the talk with bold people-centered programs. Under his rule, Burkina Faso has removed French military forces, stopped exploitative mining deals, and refused the CFA franc, a colonial-era currency that shackles West African economies to France. Traoré has moved national wealth toward grassroots growth, investing in schooling, healthcare and food stability, despite crippling illegal sanctions from Western forces. His nationalization of Burkina Faso's gold holdings, a move that enraged General Langley, sees that the country's wealth helps its people, not foreign companies. We will dig our gold ourselves, not for France, not for the West, but for our people. Traoré stated a statement that has become a rallying cry across the world. Traoré's defiance of aggression is matched by his pledge to regional unity. As a key creator of the AES, he has forged a confederation with Mali and Niger, all of which have expelled French troops and priority African answers to African problems. This union, formalized on July 6, 2024, represents a radical departure from the Western-dominated business group of West African states, ECOWAS, which Traoré has accused of serving imperialist goals. His ideal of a new Africa, free from imperialism and neo-colonialism, connects deeply with a generation of Africans, disillusioned by leaders who value foreign approval over internal growth. But it's not just program that endeavors to cater to the people. It's his sincerity as a shy schoolboy turned terrorist. Captain Traoré is a man of the people, often seen in military ratings, rather than the opulent suits chosen by Africa's politicians elite. His talks are direct and unedited, and filled with the facts that pierce the cover of neo-colonial lies this continent has suffered and continues to suffer from the fire of the imperialists. He stated at the AES meeting in Niamey, Niger on July 6, 2024, "Such words are not mere talk. They are a call to action, stirring Africans to reclaim their future." The show of support for Traoré has cast a hard spotlight on African leaders, many of whom are now grappling with embarrassment and fear the sight of their own people gathering for a foreign boss while avoiding or openly blaming their own leaders is a public relations disaster and a stark criticism of their failures in Liberia. President Joseph Boakai's government was caught flat-footed as people united for trial only to face arrests and threats for showing unity. The heavy-handed answer shows a greater worry if Liberians are willing to risk their freedom for a Bokanab leader. What does that say about their faith in Boakai's government in Ivory Coast? President Alassane Ouattara faces claims of being a committed US-EU-NATO partner, with protesters in Monrovia and Ouagadougou claiming that his government is a launching ground for plots against Traoré. These claims, repeated by Burkina Faso's military officials, have increased tensions between the two countries, with Traoré himself accusing Ivory Coast of harboring destabilizes the gathering outside the Ivorian embassy in Monrovia was a shameful blow to Ouattara, revealing his vulnerability to public dissent and undermining his regional power across the continent. Leaders like Nigeria's Bola Tinubu and Kenya's William Ruto are watching with dread. Their people's participation in Pro-Tree shows a rising rejection of the status quo states that depend on IMF loans, Western military bases, and exploitative businesses to prop up their regimes. As one Ghanaian protester put it, "Our leaders borrow billions from the West. But what do we see? Inflation, jobless, and excuses. Try is building schools and hospitals with Burkina Faso's why can't our president do the same?" This attitude, echoed in ex-posts and street protests, show the shame of leaders who have failed to inspire or give Traoré rise, reveals a painful, truthfully, African leaders are not getting this backing because they have not earned it. Many have ruled over economies that boost outsiders' companies while impoverishing their people. They sign military bags with France and the US, accepting foreign troops to act on African land. While terrorist insurgencies grow, they cling to power through rigged elections or constitutional manipulation, alienating their youth who see no future under their rule. In contrast to Traoré's Burkina Faso, though not without challenges, is a light of hope, a country dare to chart its own path despite huge outward pressure. Captain Traoré's best tool is his desire to speak truths that African leaders would rather bury. He has called out the arrogance of Western powers and their African agents with a clarity that goes far beyond Burkina Faso. If you want a break with these imperialist forces, it's simple. We must condemn the deals he pushed in January 2025, slamming French. President Emmanuel Macron's claim that African leaders should thank Paris for its military presence. Traoré's response that Macron was insulting all Africans thrilled the continent, showing the arrogance of old colonial powers and the complicity of African leaders who uphold such setups. Traoré has also challenged the story of African reliance. We're denying the idea that the continent needs Western help or intervention to grow. We have proof tracks have been laid. Troops are equipped, he said in July 2024, accusing France, Benin and Ivory Coast of organizing destabilization efforts against Burkina Faso. By naming names and showing proof, Traoré has forced African leaders to address their role in perpetuating neo-C imperial networks. His charges against Ivory Coast in particular have strained official ties, but encouraged campaigners who see Ouattara as a movie of Western values, perhaps. Most damaging is Traoré's criticism of African leaders failed to gather at the AES meeting. He spoke of a continent suffering from the fire of the imperialists and called for a union that values African power over Western appeasement. This idea directly challenges ECO, which many view as a tool of French and American impact by forging the AES with Mali. And Traoré has shown that African unity is possible without Western oversight, a prospect that scares leaders who count on external confirmation to keep power. The protests backing Traoré have created fear in African leaders for several reasons. First, they show a growing pan-Africanist awareness that crosses national lines. The fact that Ghanaians, Liberians and others are gathering for a Burkinabe leader shows that loyalty is moving from individual governments to a broader idea of African freedom. This is a nightmare situation for leaders who depend on nationalist language or ethnic divisions to keep control. Second, Traoré's fame reveals the fragility of their own authority when Liberians risk arrest to protest outside the Ivorian embassy, or when Ghanaians chant Traoré's name while avoiding Akufo-Addo. It sends a clear message. The social deal between African leaders and their people are broken. The arrests in Liberia in particular shows a desperate try to stifle this awakening. But such steps only fuel public anger. As one ex-post warned, the CIA says that leaders like Captain Ibrahim Traoré could influence African leaders, and Africa may become a superpower in under 15 years. This fear of a Traoré-inspired domino effect is palpable among elites. Third, Traoré's defiance of Western powers raises the stakes for African leaders who collaborate with them. On his removal of French troops and refusal of the CFA, Frank has inspired calls for similar acts in countries like Senegal, Kivu, and Cameroon. Leaders who host Western defense sites or IMF deals now face greater scrutiny from their people who see Traoré as proof that another road is possible. The protests, with their anti-imperialist slogans and Russian flags, signal a rejection of the West's grip on Africa, a trend that threatens the political future of pro-Western governments. The support for Traoré goes beyond Africa, amplifying his power and the shame of African leaders in the African diaspora, particularly in the United States. And European campaigners have gathered unity protests, drawing parallels between Traoré's battle and world fights against imperialism. Social media sites like X are burning with posts praising Traoré as a rebel hero, one user stated. Everyone with a black skin on earth must stand with Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, mirroring the world echo of his words. This international factor shows why Traoré's rule is so dangerous. Unlike African leaders who court Western support at Davos or the UN, Traoré speaks to the local kids, workers and the disenfranchised. His unity with Russia and China, while controversial, is seen as a strategic move to counter Western domination, not a blind acceptance of new masters. Either we agree to fight for our country, or we remain slaves forever, Traoré stated in answer to US threats, a statement that has gone popular among activists worldwide as the dust settles from the April 30th protests. One thing is clear, Captain. Ibrahim Traoré has changed the game. His leadership has not only united Burkina Faso, but sparked a pan-Africanist rebirth that is causing African leaders to confront their own inadequacies. The fear and shame they feel are not just personally. They show a deeper crisis of authority and a land hunger for true freedom for the people. Traoré represents hope as a leader, Who dares to dream of an Africa free from the bonds of empire, where resources serve the many, not the few for African presidents? He is a mirror, reflecting their mistakes as a reminder that power without cause is fleeting, as one Burkinabe protester, Harun Saudogo, warning if they want to eliminate Captain Traoré, they should destroy the people. First, this is the heart of Traoré's revolution, a movement based in the will of the people, unstoppable by arrests, threats, or coups. The protests of April 30th, 2025 is a wake-up call for Africa. They signal a new era where people are no longer happy with leaders who bow to foreign powers or value personal gain over public benefit. Store's facts about empire unity and self-reliance are changing the continent's political situation, showing the weakness of those who stick to the old order. As Africans from Liberia to Ghana, from Ouagadougou to the diaspora rally behind this young captain, they are not just backing a man, they are reclaiming their future. And for African leaders watching from their homes, the message is clear: adapt or be left behind. As I end, brothers and sisters of this great land, please allow me to say this: the loud protests of April 30th, 2025 have etched Captain Ibrahim Traoré's name into the history of African past, not as a mere boss but as a trigger for a continent wide-waking from the lively streets of Ouagadougou to the bold marches in Monrovia and Accra. Africans have spoken, with one voice rallying behind a young Burkinabe leader who embodies their goals for honoring sovereignty and self-determination. This rare show of solidarity spanning countries and seas has laid bare a stark truth: the old guard of African leadership is teetering on the edge of decline to live and thrive. African politicians must shed their egos, accept Traoré's revolutionary plan, and align with the will of their people. The option is a future where they are sidelined by a generation that refuses to accept failure. Traoré's rapid rise offers a lesson in leadership based in courage, truthfulness, and service. His bold moves, removing foreign troops, nationalizing wealth, and forging the Union of Sahel states, demonstrate that African countries can chart their own futures without bowing to external pressures. His outspoken speech, calling out neo-colonialism and its enablers, has struck agreement with a people weary of leaders who value foreign ties over domestic growth. The sight of Liberians risking arrest to protect Burkina Faso's rights, or Ghanaians singing for a foreign boss, is a warning call. Africans crave leaders who act decisively, speak truthfully, and deliver tangible results. Traoré raised Burkina Faso with its focus on education, healthcare, and food security, despite Western bans, are proof that such leadership is not a pipe dream but a feasible path forward. African leaders must understand that the protests are not just about Traoré. They signal a tectonic change in public thought. The youth, who form the majority of Africa's people, are no longer happy with empty claims or leftover colonial tools like echoes. They demand leaders who reject greedy agreements, invest in local economies, and foster European unity. Traoré's AS, a union built on mutual respect and shared goals, is an approach that leaders must study and change. By contrast, those who cling to Western favor or suppress dissent, as seen in Liberia's arrests, risk losing their people and fueling rebellion. The shame of seeing their people march for a foreign leader should be a wake-up call to value accountability over arrogance. To learn from Traoré, leaders must first humble themselves, acknowledging their flaws and engaging with their people goals. They must dismantle processes that support dependency, send national wealth to the people, and champion African answers to African problems. It takes courage to fight imperialist pressures and knowledge to build open government. The alternative, pressing down on ego-driven politics, will only deepen the gap between masters and the ruled, preparing the way for more protests, riots, or even coups. The dawn of a new Africa is here, lit by Traoré's eyes and the people's resolve. Leaders who accept this moment, learning from his example, can move their country toward wealth and pride. Those who refuse, blinded by pride, will find themselves remains of a dying age, overtaken by a continent ready to rise as one. Our letter. I wrote the letter, they didn't receive it. It's okay, change doesn't happen in one day. Change in one day. We will accept the order of the cops, the police are advising. That first of all, I know the law of all the facts. That they said that we're raising worry that business. I don't accept that under the law the second that the cops have the power to force us. The truth of the permit, because the police cop right here, they're here. You can show it to them. They're right here if this permit was not given to. If I had one of those habits, any court under the Constitution of Liberia. You can tell me that raising, because I know within myself we're not raising any care and honor our freedom fight we're not teaching anyone.